Hey guys, what is going on? Formula Yan here, and welcome to my channel. This is gonna be my first video for the channel. I was thinking, what video should I start off the channel with, and there was nothing better that popped into my mind other than 2018 predictions, the championship predictions. Um, with the hype getting pretty big right now, Williams soon, Renault and Force India soon to reveal their car, unveil their car, excuse me. Everybody's getting all hyped up, and winter testing is just around the corner, so I thought let's do our predictions now while the hype is up there and while everybody's looking for some F1 videos to get them ready for the season. So moving on, not going to sugarcoat it with the 10th spot. It's going to be Toro Rosso. Plain simple, everybody would probably expect Toro Rosso to be last due to them having Honda engines. Nothing against Honda, just their track record is not good at all. Toro Rosso in general, not really a favorite in terms of competitiveness. I'm pretty sure they have a decent fan base. A lot of people seem to like the drivers that have come through there. They really have a nice young driver program with Red Bull, and really it's nice, but at the same time Honda's going to be holding them back, so unfortunately they'll be in last place. Moving on to 9th, and that's going to be Alpha Sauber. I do think they'll be a lot better than I say, but I'm doing 9th because really they did have a bad season last year, coming in dead last. But at this, like, saying 9th is just because I just don't want to expect a lot from them with this, from them moving away from Sauber and becoming Alpha Sauber. I just think I don't think it'd be fair to put too much expectation on them. It is the first season, but at the same time, who knows? They might pull something, and they probably will. Moving on to 8th spot, we've got Haas, and the reason I say this because they're still a fresh young team. When I say young, they don't really have much experience in F1. Even though they have gone through 2 seasons, you can't really I don't think you can consider yourself good. Is that the right word? Well, you can't expect them to be up there. Who knows? They could. But at the same time, I think they have some experienced people in the team, but still as a team they're pretty young, and I wouldn't expect them to be doing so well. And I say this also because of their first 2 years. They started off pretty solid in the beginning of the year, but then they started to drop off as the season goes. We start to hear more complaints from Grosjean with the car from each race weekend, and you're like, are they doing anything? But then they do pull off some good results. Not saying they're bad, but I think they're not consistent enough as a team. So for that, I think they're going 8th. And now here's where it's going to get. I think 7th to 5th is going to be probably a really tight battle. And I think... Ooh, this is a tough one, I'll be honest. I kept putting them around, but I think it's going to be 7th is going to be Force India. And I say this because it's tough, but I don't know. We saw at the end of last season, Checo and Ocon really did not. They really cost them some big points. They cost them a podium. Might have even cost themselves a victory in Baku. They were probably in a good spot to win it, to be honest, before their incident. They could, honestly, I think they could have won that one, but if everything had still gone the way it had. But I say this because I think there are just teams above them. The 2 other teams are Williams and Renault. I think those 2 teams probably will do better. We saw Renault big leap forward from 2016 to 2017. They got 2 great drivers right now in Hulkenberg and Sainz. Really got a good package. The team's being confident, especially Renault, saying their engine they've improved on, and you can't really bet against them in a way. Bet against them Yeah. So I'm just going to put Force India in the 7th spot and move on to 6th. And 6th will be Williams. Williams, I think, really they came back with a bang in 2014 from 2013, and people were like, "Wow, Williams, they're up there now. They're fighting for podiums. They just gotta push up." 2015, I think, was a step down from 2014, and it's just taken a step down as each year's passed. Now with Paddy Lowe, this is gonna be his first year where he actually got to do something with the car. I think they could do something, but the only reason I am not really putting them higher is because they're just other teams. Just like the Force India thing, there's just other teams above them that I think will do a lot better. Um, one of them being Renault. We're moving Renault in the 5th spot. Number 5 will be Renault. And I think I say this because they really did a great job last season. I think it was a big step up. But now I think they can really take the fight. And when I say 5th, I'm thinking they could take the fight to the other teams. Maybe battle for a podium this season. With all the hype around the Renault engine. But who knows, to be honest. We hear this all the time with teams saying, "Oh, the engines are better. We're closer. We're better. We've made improvements." But if we follow the hype, then Renault should be doing something. Who knows? We could get some podiums from Renault. They'll come back. But also, I mean, we saw with Red Bull last season, they seemed to do well with the engine. It wasn't because of the engine they got the wins and the podiums throughout the season, but at the same time, the engine I think, has played a bigger factor than it has in previous seasons in terms of just the performance differences. We've seen with Mercedes when these new era of engines came out, how dominant they were, how Mercedes engine was the engine to have. But now it has gotten closer, and it will keep continue to get closer because Mercedes will reach a point where they've peaked, not peaked, but they can't develop even get even faster and faster. They can just improve the reliability and keep it a strong thing, and other teams will uh, either match or be close enough. We saw with Ferrari, they've made steps. Last season they really seemed, but in previous seasons they seem to have just made rises. But we're also seeing this a little bit with Renault, and they're saying it too. So Renault will be my number 5 spot, and now number 4, we're gonna have McLaren. McLaren really, I'm not a fan of McLaren in terms of that's my team I support, but in terms of Formula One, definitely McLaren. Everybody can say this when they say they miss McLaren fighting with the top dogs. Back in the day, Hamilton. And when I say back in the day, it's not too long ago, but Hamilton, Alonso for Ferrari, and Vettel for Red Bull. Those three fighting. Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren. You go in every race weekend. Those three guys were the ones to watch. You wanted to see those battles. And I think now McLaren could be coming back. Alonso now in McLaren rather than Hamilton. And McLaren just has such a rich history. Now they've moved to Renault. It's the first year with Renault engines. We saw last year that Red Bull could do it with the Renault engine. We don't really know McLaren's true pace because the Honda engine was so bad last year. It did hinder them a lot. But at the same time, there was always talks of just their car, their chassis and aero just being pretty good, and we saw this in Hungary where Alonso got 6th, I believe it was, and he got fastest lap of the race. Fastest lap could have been held back due to Vettel's issues and kind of holding up the top 4, but at the same time, 6th is good nonetheless. With the fast lap, I mean, he'll take it, especially with that car. Absolutely, he's absolutely furious with that car. But we saw that they had something with those tracks. In Monaco, they did well in terms of qualifying, but they got unlucky. But they have that. So with the new Renault engine, who knows? I definitely can see them hitting a podium. Whether or not we see a race win, that's just how the depends on the season. Hopefully we can see a race win, but you never know. Now moving on to the third spot. Now I'm just gonna get this out of the way now. My third spot may not be popular to most people, but when I say this, it hurts me to say this because I am a Ferrari fan, and that third spot it will be Ferrari. Um, Man, I've been a Ferrari fan since I was born, since I started watching the sport. My dad is a Ferrari fan, and he's been watching it. And when I was born, I've been watching it with him. Been Ferrari ever since. So it really deeply hurts me since it's been so long, so long. I almost can't remember the time we won the constructors. To be fair, constructors isn't really what most people want to see in terms of what they want to see won by a team or a driver, but at the same time that you want your team to do well. And for me, Ferrari will be third. My reasoning is they honestly were the best team at the first half of the season. I think they got unlucky in China with the safety car. They got unlucky in Russia with the start, and I think Spain they got unlucky with the virtual safety car and pitting Vettel late. So there were a bunch of races last season that really hurt them as a team, but we did see Monaco, Hungary, just the the grip that that car had, something Ferrari hasn't really had in years, something that's been their weakness. They are up there, and I think you can say that's to Sebastian Vettel's credit. One thing that people do praise him for is that he's really good to work with. He's really um, helpful with the direction he likes to take the car in terms of giving feedback, and that I think we saw some of Vettel's influence there. I'm not saying he was the reason why they were so quick last season, but he definitely is a factor. Um, but that's not going to be the reason why they're in third. I think the reason is Kimi. I love Kimi, I really do. But there are some races. There's a decent amount of races where he's just nowhere, and I don't know if that's just because the car just doesn't suit him, or because he's lost it. I'd like to think he hasn't lost it because we saw the pole position in Monaco. We've seen what he's done, what he did in. We've seen what he's done in Hungary. He really held back Hamilton and Bottas like it was no big deal. Could have won that race. I think he's a good number 2 driver right now with the way he's been performing. But for the constructors, I think it's just gonna come down to Kimi. Uh, and when I say third, I mean it's gonna be a close one. I really do think it's gonna be close between the top 3 this season. Kimi being a big factor for Ferrari being in third, but at the same time he will be coming up big for Vettel. And who knows, even the team. I hope to see him win this season because it could be his last season, and I think Kimi's a fan favorite, so yeah. Now we're moving on to the second spot. Now, the second spot for me, I thought about it a lot. I thought about the way the season went, and I think the weird thing about F1 when it comes to predictions is that you don't know uh, how good the cars are. You don't know anybody's pace. Even in testing, you can see it, but if they're close, you really don't know because testing doesn't say everything. It's not like other sports where you can see like basketball or football where you see the players. You know what they're capable of because you've seen them before, and you can kind of make a prediction. Yeah, they're going to be solid. They're going to be this. They're going to be that. But with F1, you just can't do that because you just don't know until the very first race of the season. And but looking back on the way the season ended last year or this year, and just overall hype and just looking around, I'm gonna put second place Mercedes. And the reason I say this is because I mean Hamilton, he's gonna be up there, 100% is gonna be up there, whether you like him or not. He's a really talented driver. He's definitely one of the greats to grace the sport. And I'm not saying I'm a Hamilton fan. I'm completely away from Hamilton, but you gotta respect what he can do as a driver. Bottas, on the other hand, like the Kimi, could be holding back. We saw Bottas. He was definitely solid. Did a lot better than most people thought he would do. But at the same time, he did have Kimi moments where he was nowhere. You know, like there were some races where you're like, what is Bottas doing? And he was just by himself. You know. On the other hand, you do have a car like the Mercedes, which could prove to be good enough that Bottas won't have to really you won't really see Bottas falling off because the car's good. But I just don't see that happening this year with teams like Red Bull making improvements and Ferrari just going off of the way they ended this season. You just don't see them kind of slacking off. But yeah, that's what I think. Mercedes is going to be close, but I think second place is a fair one for me. And then the winner is going to be Red Bull. It's going to be Red Bull. I don't know why I'm thinking this. I just have a feeling with Red Bull, they have probably two of the, I think the best partnership in terms of drivers. You've got Max, probably a future champion. Everybody's always saying that. Future champion, future champion. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you need it. You can be the greatest driver ever, but you need to have a good car underneath you. But the way that it ended last season, Max picking up 2 victories, well deserved. You you kind of see it. You kind of see it. You can see it. If Renault's engine does improve as they're saying, they could be up there. If it's nothing to be hyped about, I don't know. But I do think Red Bull will have the pace over the rest. And when I say the pace over the rest, I just think both their drivers are going to be up there consistently, rather than say Ferrari with Vettel being up there and Kimi sometimes having a couple bad races that will really hurt them in the points. And then Bottas, I think, is going to be doing that with Hamilton. So there's nothing really to say in terms of that. I think Ricardo is probably the second best, not second best, probably one of the, I'll just say one of the best drivers on there. Um, he definitely has shown that he can be a world champion. In terms of F1, he is kind of getting, with the talent we've seen, he's kind of getting old. But at the same time, Rosberg won his title when he was like 31, so there's plenty of time for Ricardo. That is my constructors predictions. So let me know in the comments whether or not you agree. What's your predictions? But now we're gonna be moving on to our drivers. Alright guys, now probably for the predictions that most people will care about more than the constructors, it's the drivers. And the way I'm gonna do this, I'll do the top 10 in 10th spot. Not gonna waste any time. I'm going to have Sainz. I think Renault will, obviously I do have them in 5th spot, and to be in 5th spot you at least have to have one driver in the top 10. I think Sainz will be there, and 9th place will be, for me, maybe Van Dorn. I say Van Dorn because he's a great driver. We did see, when I say great, tone it down, he's a good driver. He really is. He does deserve to be in that McLaren seat. I do think there are better drivers than him on the track, on the grid I mean, and that being the rest of the drivers ahead of him. Van Dorn will be my 9th spot. Moving on to 8th place, that will be good old Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg is a pretty good driver. He's definitely underrated in my opinion, or maybe now people are starting to see what he has. I don't know, but definitely when he was in Force India, and then even that brief stint, that 1 year at Sauber, he was incredible that year, and you can't take away from him the ability he has in qualifying. We've seen people are kind of slating him because he is pretty quick in qualifying, but during the race he kind of loses it. Not sure if that's just the car and race pace isn't as good as qualifying pace, but I do think Hulkenberg will come 8th. Honestly, it's definitely a good result for him and the team if he is an 8th, but I do think there will be other drivers ahead of him. Now moving on, I will have in 7th place. Yeah, we're in 7th now. Excuse me, voice crack. Seventh place, I will have Kimi Räikkönen. Yeah. And I say this because I think he wasn't there last season for a good amount of races where he was just alone, and I think cars will be better this year, like the McLaren. Um, I think it will be close with McLaren and Renault in some races. I don't think McLaren will always be at the top, but I think there will be plenty of races like Monaco, Hungary, where McLaren could fight for a podium. Maybe a win. We don't know what they're gonna produce. Um, but yeah, I think in those races, Kimi might struggle. But at the same time, Ferrari did have a good aero package. Who knows? We'll wait and see. But if Kimi performs like he did last season and had some of the performances where he was just nowhere, I think it will come back to bite him in terms of both championships for Ferrari and for his drivers' championship. Moving on to sixth place, and that's going to be good old Alonso. Hands down, the best driver in terms of just getting in a seat and driving. He's definitely the best one. Um, he's shown it in his time at McLaren last season with the qualifying. He put that thing in Q2 at the beginning of the season when everybody thought they wouldn't break Q1. And then near the end, Q3. You couldn't believe it. You couldn't believe your eyes. Even though it was just qualifying, you were stunned. You were amazed. Which just goes to show he's ability, and it shows how unlucky he is to not have a third title or more. But at the same time, it has been kind of his fault for leaving teams. He has been criticized for leaving teams at the wrong time, not sticking with, and also he has been said to not be the best driver to work with in terms of developing a car. But I think sixth place, I think Alonso would be happy with it. It'd be a big step up, but obviously I think the season after that he would want to be title contender. And who knows, depending on how the season goes, he might be a title contender. We don't know. Like I said, it's hard to predict these things. But he could be a title contender, or the season might be pretty good that we could assume next season the way the season after this one could go. Who knows? Sixth place, Alonso. Moving on to fifth, easy, Bottas. I say Bottas because they're just better drivers than him. He has a good car. I think he will do well, like he did this season. But I think other drivers will do much better. And that's leading to fourth place. Fourth place will be, and this is going to be might be a shock for some people, Verstappen. I say Verstappen mainly because I didn't touch on this in the constructors, and I don't know why, but he did have a terrible first half of the season this season, but that's not due to him. It was the car was just terrible. Um, the car was just terrible with reliability. It could come back to haunt him this season yet again, but at the same time, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's going to just be more, he's just young. I don't think he's, I think he could be up for it, but at the same time, I think the fact that he's young might come back to hold him back, because we did see in Hungary, he just got too eager trying to overtake. He hit Ricardo, his teammate, and it did affect the race. They really were quick. They could have gotten a podium in that race, but who cares? We've moved on. But at the same time, you can't forget that he could pull something like that off. At the same time, he can pull off a race win or two, like he did with a car that wasn't really up to the standards that we've seen from Red Bull. But I think fourth place, and I'm not saying fourth place by a long shot like we saw this year. I'm saying close. This is going to be a close title fight in my opinion. I hope it is. I think everybody hopes it is. We want a 2010. We want a 2010 or 2012 where it's just wins from different teams, cars. We want 2010 where it's title fight till the end with more than 2 drivers, and 3 and 4, because it was with 5. And that was incredible. Hands down one of my favorite seasons of all time. And now we are going to move on quickly to the third spot. Love him or hate him, love this positioning or hate this from me, but I think it's gonna be Hamilton. I think Hamilton is hands down one of the greats, not the greatest, but one of the greats. He's definitely made a name for himself from the moment he stepped into F1, and he's proven why McLaren invested in him all those years ago before he was even old enough to have a license. McLaren saw something in him, and he's proven it by winning a title with McLaren and winning a bunch with Mercedes. He is a talented driver. He's not my favorite driver. I am not a Hamilton fan by any means, but you got to respect what the man's can do. And in my opinion, I think Hamilton will be in third spot because there will be moments where Red Bull and Ferrari will be on them, and he will struggle like we saw in Russia. He was really upset throughout the race, and there are moments where he gets upset and it kind of affects what he does. We saw it in McLaren near the end. McLaren was terrible with reliability, and it cost him a championship, to be honest, because McLaren probably had the strongest car that year, and it held them back. The reliability, it held Hamilton back, and that's a big reason why he went to Mercedes. He wanted something else. He wanted a new challenge. He wanted a car that was promising something, and he didn't see it in McLaren. And I think there could be moments where Red Bull and Ferrari will be faster, and I think those moments are going to be in tracks like Monaco, Hungary, Singapore, you know, Russia too. That third sector was terrible for Mercedes. I think they will feel it, and if they're behind, I think it will affect Hamilton in the way he interacts with the media and the team and everything. I'm not saying it's going to ruin him. I'm just saying it could hold him back. Moving on to second place. This is going to be. This one was kind of tough because I think second place is more of a like you're like how. It's more of a guess in a way, but like it's an educated guess. But you might call me stupid and uneducated for this guess, and I think it's gonna be Ricardo. I think he's a talented driver, hands down. People think he's great. I would love to see him at Ferrari. There's always talks with him going to Ferrari. I think he'd be perfect there. But whether or not him and Vettel would gel well is a different question. But the man can race, hands down. We know this. He can race. He's won races where he's had to overtake. I don't think he's won a race from pole yet, because I think he only has one pole, and that was at Monaco. And Red Bull did kind of screw him over on that one. But the man's got talent. But I think Red Bull won't be faster than Ferrari in terms of overall package, and that's why Vettel will be my 2018 champion. This is pretty biased, but at the same time, the way the season went last year, I thought Vettel was kind of unlucky not to win the championship. First half was Ferrari. In terms of performance, I think they were better. And then second half, they got unlucky in Singapore, Malaysia, Japan. In terms of reliability was Malaysia, Japan, and in terms of mistake, it was Singapore. But that's my those are my predictions. If you do agree, let me know in the comments. If you do disagree, let me know in the comments. Tell me what's your top 10 for Driver Championship. What is your standings for constructors? Please let me know. I will look through the comments. If you did enjoy it, leave a like, subscribe. There will be plenty more videos this season to come, and hopefully you did enjoy. I'm from Lian, and I'll see you guys in the next video.